Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the September 22nd edition of Horses to Watch, where we carefully analyze trips, looking for horses that might have encountered adversity during the past week and could be worth betting back when they run back in the future. And this week at Belmont Park, or I should say this past week, we had a lot of horses encountering adversity because there was a situation on two of their three courses where there were significant rail biases, and horses that got wide trips were severely compromised. There are many horses and trips I could have talked about on this episode. We're going to narrow it down to four races, beginning with a race from opening day of this Belmont Park Fall Meet, going back to last Thursday, September 16th, the eighth race of the day. This is an optional claiming 80,000, non-winners of two other than allowance condition, going a mile and a quarter on the inner turf course, which is one of those courses that was favoring rail position. Let's break these runners from the gate and focus on the number 1A Perjury Trap, who is part of a Chad Brown Klarovich Stables entry, along with the number 1 Value Engineering. Perjury Trap, probably the slightly less heralded, less fancied of the entry, though they were bet down to 3-5 favoritism together. And he's going to get the wrong kind of trip over this inner turf course. This is going a mile and a quarter distance, so it's an entire circuit of this inner turf course at Belmont Park. And you're going to notice as this race unfolds that the horses that finish at the end of the race are going to be the horses that have the best position closest to the hedge in the early part of the race, those being the number 4, who was on the lead, Summer to Remember, and the number 2, Temple, who will be the eventual winner of this race at 7-1. Now, things don't look so bad for Perjury Trap right now. Again, he is the 1A, the second Klarovich stable runner towards the back of the pack, currently in second to last position. He's in about the 2 path, not that far off the rail, but things start to go awry for him as they progress towards the far turn because the pace of this race was not that fast, and I think no fractions are going to be posted during this race. That's a separate topic entirely, but there were many timing issues this past week at Belmont Park. Not sure exactly what's going on, but they just found it, were unable to time a lot of their races properly on really all of their courses, but primarily the turf races were a big problem. So many of the fractions didn't show up during the races or in the charts afterwards. Trackus was right a lot of the time if you want to look at that. My Time Formula colleague, Craig Milkowski, who makes the Time Formula speed figures, did a lot of work video timing the races. So I know he put out some times on Twitter and other places. But getting back to the race here, you can see the number 1A Perjury Trap here is now swinging 4 wide coming to the quarter pole for the stretch drive. And as I was saying, you need rail position on the inner turf. So swinging into the 3 or 4 path to make your move is just not going to be successful given the bias situation on this turf course. And you can see as soon as he gets out into that 4 path, his move stalls. He can't make up any ground. And the only horses that are doing any running at the end of this race are the 2, 4, and 6, who spent the majority of the races on the inside. Perjury Trap finished second to last in this race, but he just never had a chance to put forth his best effort. He had come back off the layoff last time, his race 2 back, and won at Ellis Park very impressively. This was his only other race of his 4-year-old campaign, and I think he's in better form than it appears, and he'll do better next time at this level when he gets on a fair turf course. Moving on to another race that's run on the inner turf course, progressing to Saturday's card at Belmont Park, September 18th. We're going to check out race 9, one of the co-features, the Jockey Club Oaks Invitational, going a mile and 3/8 on that inner turf course. Let's break these runners from the gate. We're going to focus on the number 3, Baby Blythe, who will be the last place finisher in this race. She's not going to be particularly successful in this race, but you'll see why as the race progresses into the clubhouse turn. There was no speed on paper, and the 2 Chad Brown runners who ultimately finished first and second dominate on the front end. And for whatever reason, Baby Blythe's connections wanted no part of the front end in this race. And you can see that gray horse with the turquoise silks, is really fighting her rider, Louis Saez, as they move towards the clubhouse turn. She wants to show more early speed than her rider's allowing her to, but they have this plan to rate her, and they're sticking to it as they move into the clubhouse turn here. And because Saez couldn't really control her in the first quarter mile to 3/8 of the race, he's unable to guide her down to the rail when there was an opportunity to do so. And you can see as they move on to the clubhouse turn here, he's now 3 wide, which is bad enough, but that's especially detrimental to her chances over a rail-biased turf course. And furthermore, it's a slow-paced turf race, and he's the only horse in the race, I say he, Louis Saez, and the filly Baby Blythe, that has no cover. And in these turf races, especially going marathon distances, what you want to do as a rider is get your horse covered up in behind runners, especially if they're coming from off the pace, get them to relax, following another horse so that they're not tugging. They don't see daylight ahead of them like they want to run off, kind of trick them into not expending too much energy early in the race. And Baby Blythe is getting the opposite kind of trip to that because she sees daylight racing 3 wide down the backstretch. She's too keen, not settled at any point during this race. And also, she's a very lightly raced filly. She had just broken her maiden in her start prior to this. This was just the 4th start of her career. Shug McGahey, her trainer, was uncharacteristically aggressive, running her in this high purse stakes just off that maiden win. And it just doesn't quite work out because of all the factors I'm mentioning. And you can see here, coming around the far turn, she still is 3 wide. And at this point, Zayas is finally asking her for run, but she's already expended way too much energy fighting him for the first half of the race. And she's just going to have no kick at the end of this race. And you really needed to reserve a sprint finish in this race because the 2 leaders, those 2 Chad Brown trained horses, the number 6 Shantasara and the number 2 Higher Truth, to complete the exacta, they absolutely sprint home on the front end. Shantasara, if you look at Trackus, ran her final quarter mile in this race in 21.67 seconds, which is just absolutely blazing for the final fraction in a mile and 3/8 race. And it just gave nobody any chance to close from the back of the pack, especially not a horse that was losing ground over a biased course around both turns. So Baby Blythe is a filly that was really impressive, breaking her maiden at Saratoga prior to this. I think she still has plenty of ability. This was just the wrong situation for her. And if she cuts back in distance next time, is in a slightly less ambitious spot, I think we'll see her do a lot better. Let's move away from the inner turf now and go on to the main track and talk about a couple of dirt races because the main track was also a problem this past week at Belmont Park. Same situation. I'm not sure why there were biases on both courses, 2 different courses. I think it's just a fluke that occurred in the same week, but there was a rail bias on the main track at Belmont Park as well, really on all 4 days of this opening week, but it really got intensified towards the tail end of the week. Let's talk about Saturday's 11th race, the final race of September 18th. We'll break these runners from the gate. The starter allowance, 50,000. We're going to focus on the number 10, Repo Rocks, but I also want to talk about the number 6, Risk Profile, who is the eventual winner of this race. Now, Repo Rocks you see highlighted there in those lime green and dark green silks. He's going to actually break pretty well, which is a problem for him. He sometimes has trouble getting out of the gate. So he was racing first off the claim for a new barn here, Juan Vasquez, and I was encouraged that the new barn got him to break so much better in this race. And he gets a stalking trip about 3 wide moving into the clubhouse turn. Meanwhile, the number 6, Risk Profile, you might have noticed coming out of the starting gate, he was steadied a few strides out of the gate, and he's actually off the screen right now, just coming into your picture right there on the right-hand side of the screen. He is on the rail, though, and notice as they come around the far turn, the horses that are on the rail are the number 9, the number 4, the number 1, and the number 6. And those 5 horses are going to comprise 4 of the top 5 positions. The only horse that's in the top 5 that was not on the rail for a significant portion of this race is the number 10, Repo Rocks, who now has striped the front lead, but he did so after racing 3 wide around the far turn and moving into a pretty honest pace. And there you see the number 6, Risk Profile, who has just gotten this amazing ride from John Velasquez after blowing the start. He was about 15 lengths back after a quarter mile, but John Velasquez knew how to ride this closer over this racing surface by just keeping him on the rail the entire way. I think he only came around 1 horse at about the 8th pole, but John Velasquez got Risk Profile right back to the inside, and he rode that best part of the track to get past the number 10, Repo Rocks, right at the finish line. I do think Repo Rocks, even though he had a clean start, he arguably ran the best race here because he was on the worst part of the track the entire way, racing against the race flow. So he's a horse that I think really has come back into top form first off the claim for the new barn. And I think if he runs back at a similar level next time, he can improve on this performance. So just one to watch who did well in this race, but I think ran even better than it seems. Finish things up with a race from Sunday's card at Belmont Park, another dirt race that was affected by the rail bias. And on Sunday, if you look through all of the results of that day, the rail was really detrimental to horses outside. There were some odd results, long shots winning that rode the rail. You could see the bias really playing around with the form and the expected outcome of a lot of these races. Let's take a look at the 8th race from that Sunday, September 19th card. It's a New York bred optional claiming. 45,000 is the optional tag. Non-winners of 2 other than the allowance condition, going 7 furlongs on the main track. Let's break these runners from the gate and focus on the number 6 Cartwheel. This is a mare that was making her first start off the claim for Mercan Cantermasi, a very dangerous barn off the claim, but she's not able to show what she could do in this race because things go awry right from the start here. She is a horse that likes to show tactical speed, and soon after the start, even though she broke with the field, she gets a little bit squeezed back and she's towards the back of the pack about 10 strides out of the gate. And that's not good because now her rider, Jose Lescano, has to try to kind of regain some of the position she lost after the start. And the only way to do that is to pass horses while racing on the outside. So he never really has any opportunity to get over to the inside here. And once again, we're about halfway through this race, and take note of the two horses that are going to be successful. The number 2 Brattlehouse, who finishes second, she's on the rail. And the number 3 Fight on Lucy, also riding the rail for the majority of this race. Even though she's a 15-1 shot, she's going to win this race because her rider does the right thing by keeping her on the rail for a significant portion of this race before angling out, coming to the quarter pole right here. But she already has that momentum built up from racing on the best part of the racetrack. Meanwhile, Cartwheel, there she is in behind the leaders trying to swing out at the top of the stretch here. She doesn't really have like traffic trouble here, but you can see she doesn't want to go through between horses. Jose Lescano to angle her to the outside. But the most important thing to note is she was never close to the rail at any point in this race. 3 wide for most of the race, angles 4 wide in the stretch here. And to her credit, she really never stops running. She's finishing decently here. Briefly looks like she's going to run into 3rd place, just gets passed for 3rd right at the wire, ends up finishing a narrowly beaten 4th. But I thought it all in all was a pretty good effort first off the claim, and she's one that I think could really thrive in this new bar next time. I didn't look at the chart. I'm not sure if she got claimed out of this race. I'm going to assume that she's still with Mercan Cantermasi next time, but she's one that's pretty versatile, can go from 7 furlongs to a mile, and wants to be much more forwardly placed than she was in this race. So if she gets on a fair racetrack next time, I think that she can do much better and improve on the result of this performance. Those are all the horses to watch this week, but I would advise you to do your own replay work, look through the charts of this past week at Belmont, and try to find your own horses that you think were compromised by wide trips on both the inner turf course and the main track, the dirt course, because there were many horses that did not get ideal trips that were wide on both of those courses and will be worth betting back when they run in the future. If you want to highlight those horses or any of the horses I highlighted on this show, just go to HorseWatch on DRF.com and you can add these horses to a list and get watch mail when they run back in the future. Thanks for tuning in this week, and make sure to catch future episodes of Horses to Watch on upcoming Wednesdays.